All right, guys, what's going on? Joker here, joined by Steve from Gamers Nexus again. It's been a couple.
Hello.
What's going on, man? It's been a couple weeks since we've done. Actually, the last TGW I did was the sort of impromptu one, right after the Ryzen launch. That
Oh
was the
yeah,
last
yeah,
one I did.
yeah. And
So
we also saw each other at PAX East.
yeah, we saw. Yeah, we Steve and I ran into each other at PAX East. We didn't do any like video work together, or anything like that. It was just at a Acer after party. There really wasn't much filming to go on or anything like that. But it was nice getting to meet you and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the setup wasn't ideal for video
No,
in that
no,
venue.
no. It was in a nightclub, and honestly, going into it, I had been led to believe it was going to be like guests at a nightclub, but I thought there would maybe be a separate area where they would be able, because there was a press only hour. I thought they would have
Yeah,
laptops set up, monitors, what have you, because they were talking about the 21X a lot, the the gigantic ultra wide monitor that's like 15 grand. So I
yeah,
had expected them to at least have a few of those demo units set up in like a separate room, but no, it was just all party, which was it was okay. It was like an hour of open bar, and I got to see Steve, and then that was it.
yeah, yeah. Hung out for a little bit and then did PAX. I didn't loop back with you after that because that was the first night after PAX, right? That was Friday.
That was Friday. Yeah, that was Friday night,
Yeah,
the first day of PAX.
yeah. So did you end up seeing anything cool at PAX East?
Um, I played a couple of games that I liked. Hardware. I really had went there mostly to cover hardware. I didn't end up covering any game stuff.
Right.
And with the hardware stuff, it seemed like there wasn't a whole lot of announcements going on during that show. But it was still nice getting to go there and kind of put faces to names and emails and stuff like that. Like with some of the Gigabyte people, which I've only spoken to over email, so I was able to
Right.
meet some of them face to face, and it was good. I got to set up a lot of stuff for future content. So it was a good networking business trip more than anything.
Yeah.
It was awesome though. But if I could between PAX East and PAX West, I prefer PAX West. I don't know if you have a preference.
PAX West is definitely. I like the area better.
Yeah,
Boston, like the Boston Convention Center, for anyone who's considering PAX, East is basically like once you're at the convention center, you are surrounded by concrete and parking lots.
yeah, and it is absolutely brutal to get to the convention center and to pay for parking and travel anywhere in that city. Whereas in Seattle, it's the events are pretty much identical, but in Seattle, it's the events seemed way more accessible. You can kind of walk around and actually walk around the venue. And they've got a
Yeah,
few different rooms of like main floors, whereas PAX East it's just one really big gigantic room and then a few small theaters around the outside, but it's mostly refined to confined to one big room, so
yeah,
it's really tough to get around in there, especially on the first day.
yeah, yeah. PAX is a little brutal to navigate.
Yeah, especially yeah, and then the city of Boston again. That was like my first time driving around in Boston because I drove up there, and it was a like I stayed at a hotel that was like 5 miles away, and I looked at it on the map. And I was like, yeah, 5 miles away, that's not too bad. But 5 miles in Boston is like an hour ride.
Yeah,
It's a really long ride.
yeah. Well, we walked across the bridge every morning from the hotel to the convention center, and you pay extra for that, so you don't have to drive. But the walk was kind of brutal
It
because it
was
was
freezing.
freezing.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, it was
so
freezing
I got to the
and
convention.
snowing and just
Yeah,
it was a rough weekend, man. Very
yeah,
rough
and
weekend.
then the security line, which I totally understand why they do it, but that security line is
It,
like for us the first day was 15 or 20 minutes to get inside.
well, did you? They did have a section for media, a
Yeah,
separate line. I didn't notice that the first day. Well, I saw the sign for it, but I only saw one row of lettering on it, which was for exhibitors. So I was like, shit,
right.
I'm not an exhibitor. But then the
Yeah,
next day I saw it was like exhibitors, media, press, and like medics or whatever. It's like
right.
health people. And I was like, oh, I can go in that line. Great. But yeah, basically everyone like, and they it like I could have for all intents and purposes been the Boston City Bomber because when they saw my backpack with my monopod strapped to it, they just like just go. We're not going to make
Oh
you
yeah,
open
they
that.
did that to us
We're
too.
not going to
Yeah,
make you open that. I was just like, oh, I feel safe.
yeah. I mean, every time CES is the same way. It's like you go through all the security, you finally get to the checkpoint, and yeah, they're screening hundreds of people per hour. So there's no way they could stop and check. It's just big inconvenience. Unfortunately, not it's a lot of theater, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they did that at PAX West last year, but I ended up getting in every day. I had found on the side of the building where PAX West is, there's a huge like a road that's like basically a hill, and everyone has to
Yeah.
wait on that hill to get in. But I had went up that and I thought I was going to have to wait in this line. And I found a side door up there with like a security guard, and every day it was the same guy, and he just waved me in because I had a
Yeah.
media badge, and I was just like, thanks. I
Yeah,
don't think
PAX
I was
West
supposed to
has
go in that
some.
door, but I was.
They have some secret entrances there. It's
Yeah, they
pretty
do.
great once you figure it out.
Yep. Once you find the secret entrance, as long as you've got the right badge, you can pretty much get in anywhere. So
Yeah.
it's nice. I was able to like show up late. I was like, oh, I don't have to be there as soon as it starts. Just kind of walk in and stuff.
Yeah, so a couple people saying voice and video out of sync for me, I guess. I think
Yeah.
that's a known issue. We're not really sure what's causing it.
Yep. We were talking about that before the stream because it happened the last time we did the show. We were messing around with things. It had gotten fixed briefly, although we don't know what fixed it, and then it broke again almost as quick as it was fixed. So
Yeah.
really don't know about
No,
the audio sync on Steve's end. It's, I don't know, something with either Skype or maybe the webcam or something, but
yeah. Well, I'll try and fix it for next time. But what's your first topic you have lined up today?
The first thing up here is Ryzen 5, which I didn't get to talk about when this news story first went up, but I wanted to circle around it for people that were interested in Ryzen 5 because so many people have been kind of waiting for this after Ryzen 7. So we got the specs on that 1600X, the 1600, 1500X, and 1400. And I guess the top two SKUs would be aimed more at the i5 processors from Intel. I'm still not too sure how well these are going to compete, though. I really think it's going to come down to how well they overclock because these are essentially they're architecturally the same as the 8-core processors.
It's just the same CCXs.
Yeah, it's architecturally the same, so there is a likelihood that since they've got fewer cores, fewer threads, that they could potentially overclock a little bit higher. But we really won't know until we actually get these processors in hand to see what they could do. Because my highest overclocking Ryzen 7 CPU went to 4 gigahertz, and that was even on water.
Yeah, it depends on binning and stuff. And then I know like it's still gonna be two CCXs in these. To the best of my knowledge, it's gonna be like a 2+2 or 3+3 setup for the CCXs rather than like just one with 4 cores or something. It's supposed to be like two CCXs, 2 cores each for the 4-core ones, or 3 cores each for the 6-core ones. So that's interesting, but I think that comes down to yield at the fab level.
Yeah, but if these things end up being, they should be the same speed on single core as the Ryzen 7 CPUs, which is like 5 to 7% slower than Broadwell. About that, or is it Haswell? Haswell.
Depending on the tests, yeah.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the test. So I think, I still think these are going to be good processors, but I think for people that are sitting here thinking that okay, Ryzen 5 will be the ones that beat Intel in gaming, I still don't think that that's really going to be the case. But I think they'll be a really good bang for the buck processor, being able to do multi-threaded workloads still with 6 cores and 12 threads. I've been working on that type of setup with my X99 6800K for quite a while now, and that's a really good setup if you're still wanting to do video editing, streaming, and stuff like that. So I still think these are going to be really good for people that want to do that stuff, but I don't think it's going to be the home run that's going to beat Intel, even at like the i5 level.
Well, yeah, the R5s should, if you're looking for like, if you can't afford an R7 or an i7 type setup for mixed workload, content creation, production type of work, then the R5s, in theory, should kind of kick the pants off the i5s.
Oh, yes, certainly for that stuff.
Yeah, in that regard.
Yes.
In gaming, I'm not convinced that that the R5s will be too much different in terms of like percentage deltas between a comparable Intel chip at the price.
Yep.
But we'll have to see based on testing for that.
Yeah, but like you said, when it comes down to being able to do multi-core workloads, it's gonna kick the pants off of the i5s because those things can't hang at all. Like I edited on an i5 when I was up at PAX. It was, I was able to edit, but the renders took forever. I ended up just giving up. I'll just render these out in 1080p, even though I filmed them in 4K. I'm not sitting here for 3 hours waiting for this to render out.
i5s kind of suck for rendering. They just take forever, and ideally you could accelerate something like that if you can, or OpenCL if you can, but when there are CPU-specific workloads for production, the R5s look like they should be competitive.
See, I'm not sure about in Premiere, but at least in Vegas, when I've tried using CUDA acceleration to render out videos, I didn't really notice any benefit on as far as the render times were concerned.
We definitely see it. I've put some benchmarks up. So when we tested the 1800X and the 6900K, I had both of them doing CPU software accelerated rendering, and then we did the same thing with the GTX 1080 in there, and both the 6900K and the 1800X completed in off the top of my head, I think about 20 minutes, whereas they were taking about 60 minutes when they were CPU
Wow.
rendering.
And that's in Premiere?
That's in Premiere.
Oh wow. It seems like you
Now,
guys are that's a huge benefit then.
it,
I'm not seeing anything like that in Vegas.
yes, I'm not familiar with Vegas at all, but
Yeah.
um,
I know I'm in a
but
bit of
with
an outlier using that. Most people use Premiere.
yeah, Premiere's decent. It if you sit there and watch the GPU utilization and the CPU utilization, it's still like it'll go up to 100% on the GPU and then fall to 0, and it just kind of toggles like that through the entire cycle. So it's still using the CPU. It's just as the name would suggest, it's accelerating the rendering with the GPU, and it does actually work in Premiere.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. I think I did a test at one point like 2 years ago, and I actually saw a slower render time when I enabled the NVIDIA stuff in Sony Vegas. And not only that, but whenever I would use the NVIDIA acceleration, I would get a lot of crashes in Vegas too. So another thing was stability. That was a big thing. Every
Right.
time I would try to copy like my event attributes from like one clip to another, like color grading or whatever, it would almost immediately crash Vegas every time. Same thing for when I was copying event attributes from chroma keys from one field to the next, it would crash.
Yeah, well, I will say every day when Andrew, my main video guy, is working on videos, he'll turn around probably once every couple hours and say, "Would it surprise you if I said Premiere crashed?" So Premiere is really not much better in that regard.
Honestly, Vegas like literally never crashes for me, except for when I was having those crashing issues with Nvidia, and that was like after a new install of Windows, and I had to redo all my settings again and everything. It was just I was like every time I would paste event attributes, it would crash, and I was just like,
Right.
what does it do? Why is this happening? And I googled it, and like, yeah, just disable Nvidia. I was like, oh, okay. Blame Nvidia, of course. That must be the
Right.
solution.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah.
It solved it immediately. So yeah, I haven't used it since then. But yeah, Ryzen 5 is looking pretty good. I guess we'll probably be seeing do we have a release date on these yet? Or I believe next month,
Yeah.
right? April 11th, right there in
April
front of
11th.
my face. There it
Yeah.
is. Expected to be on shelf April 11th. I still don't know yet whether or not I'll be having a review up of these on day one. I haven't heard anything back from AMD yet, but once I know and we're able to tell you guys, I will let you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure when our reviews will go up, but we'll definitely be looking at them. Hopefully all of them, but I think the one I probably want to focus on, I I feel like the 1500X or the 1400 are going to be the more interesting from a value perspective.
See, I'm leaning
This,
towards the 1600 because it's got the 6 cores and 12 threads, and I'm viewing that like the 1700 because it's got the 65-watt TDP. So I'm thinking
right.
it's just going to be a cheaper version with like a slightly lower binning than the 1600X.
Yeah.
And if you can overclock them to the same speeds, then they'll probably be a pretty
They'll
good
be the
deal.
same.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's only $30 cheaper here though, so it's not quite the savings of the 1700 versus the 1800X.
Right. The 1600X though does, as I understand it, does not come with a stock cooler, and the 1600 non-X comes with a Spire. So that's potentially valuable if you're trying to buy a $200 CPU and not buy a CPU cooler with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, otherwise a $30 price gap, and you're basically looking at a higher XFR and a higher boost out
Yeah,
of box.
yeah, I wouldn't put. But for people out there that are banking on XFR, I wouldn't put too much stock into that because it doesn't really seem to do a whole lot for me. It's just, I mean, it only works on one core, so it's just, it didn't really seem to give me much benefit in any of my testing, really, except for a few benchmarks that took advantage of one thread.
Yeah, XFR is an interesting way to try and get a bit extra out of the clock, but there's not a lot of real world use cases where I've seen it in action yet.
Yeah.
Things like if you're just kind of, I don't know, blasting Chrome as your main application or something, then it's great. But yeah, for gaming, a lot of games are still they're multi-threaded now, so XFR doesn't really work, but they're not the most even distribution of thread load still. But XFR still doesn't help in that case. The boost does though. It's only 100 megahertz difference, so that's not bad.
I can tell you that Black Mesa runs on a single thread, so
Okay.
that'll take advantage of it. I was when I was doing Ryzen testing, I was like trying to find something like that I could throw in there, like an odd game, and I tested
Right.
that, and as soon as I loaded it up, I was like, oh, this is only using one core. This is
Did
gonna be
you did you ever
this is
include
pointless.
that in
No,
your benchmarks? Oh,
no, because as soon as I loaded it up and I saw it was only utilizing one core, I was just like, really no reason to include this in a CPU benchmark.
sure. Yeah.
Unless we're focusing on the one core performance to just show XFR off, then sure.
Right.
Then it might have a reason to show it. But yeah. So we're going to continue here with more AMD news. We got quite a few AMD topics here. This is Radeon RX Vega. I guess there was a presentation being done in China in the past week where they showed a video, a teaser trailer kind of with the Radeon Vega GPU, which was labeled as a limited edition or a special edition. And not sure if that means necessarily just. It looks like the cooler is definitely different from what they've used in the past. It looks like a brushed aluminum style, but familiar shape certainly to what they used on the RX 400 series and the previous ones before that.
Yeah, it reminds me the card that we're seeing here, the rumored card, which at this point is likely to be real.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the Fury X, like
Yeah.
the build quality.
Yep.
It looks like a higher quality build. It's either brushed aluminum or like maybe some magnesium in there or something.
Yeah.
And then I guess, go ahead.
I was just saying. I was thinking it was kind of like Founders Edition cards a little bit. The way that they've gone with that like magnesium alloy look.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So it kind of reminds me of that or of the Fury X. And then the only thing really on here that's worth note, I guess, is the GPU TAC, which is just the same as on, I think, the Fury X again, where it's an LED and it'll light up more bars, more LEDs in the pipe as it's more heavily loaded or less as it's less loaded. And then we have some color switching. But other than that, I guess we don't really know a whole lot from this image other than what AMD's already told us.
Yeah, the article from Video Cards suggested that maybe this limited edition could possibly be only for reviewers. We don't know any information on that yet, whether or not this will be the card that consumers get or if it's just a reviewer's edition. There is an image shown down below of the box that it looks like it comes in, and that does look like it could possibly be a reviewer's kit.
Yeah, and it's possible that that's the review kit, but the card is the same for everyone.
Yeah,
I would hope the card is the same for everybody.
As would I.
Yeah, I really dislike special reviewer editions of products because, like, one, what has the company done to this thing that could change performance, if anything? Normally it's nothing, but two, it just kind of looks bad, like in terms of like an audience looking in perspective. It's like, why did they get the special one, and is that representative of how mine will perform?
Oh yeah, I mean, if they do that, I mean, I can only imagine what people's response will be to us getting a special edition card after seeing the reaction of people just for us getting a special edition wooden box.
Right,
Like so many
right.
people are like, it was like, do I get a wooden box? Why don't we get wooden boxes? I want a wooden box. How much do I have to pay for the wooden box? So if we get a special edition GPU with like a different finish or whatever, or a backplate or something like that, I think a lot of people are gonna be like, this is BS. And I can
Yeah.
understand your feeling because I would feel the same way. I was like, I want the hotness.
Right.
It's like when I saw that Ryzen wooden box, like the first image of it was like, please be the reviewer's kit. I want that. And I could understand why other people would too. They should sell them.
Yeah, I think they could definitely mark that up and do just like you do with video games, with like the special edition, collector's edition.
Absolutely. We shouldn't give them any ideas though. We don't want them to turn into the gaming industry. We're like, oh yeah, pre-order now. If you pre-order Ryzen, you get a wooden box. If you don't pre-order, you don't get a wooden box.
You have to pay for DLC to get XFR.
Oh God, please don't. All right, well, I'm deleting this stream after it's over. I don't want to give them any ideas.
Next topic.
Yep. Next topic, which is continuing on with Vega. So it looks like this past week, AMD submitted about 100 patches, lines of code, for review. So it's not in the drivers yet, but they're basically in the process of submitting things so that they can get support for Vega 10 in the AMD GPU DRM drivers. So I guess really what this tells me is that Vega's probably not too far off. If they're at this point where they're starting to add in code into their drivers for Vega, then it's probably not too far away.
Yeah, it's definitely close because I think we officially know first half. I'm pretty sure was the official target. So before Computex would make sense, which Computex is late May. So yeah, definitely pretty close.
Yeah, and the other thing here, that's just really just a quick mention on that because it really ties in with what we're talking about next with the RX 500 series, which right now we don't have a firm date on that yet, but we are expecting that it's rumored for April 18th. So it looks like the 500 series would come before Vega, and Vega maybe in May or June, possibly somewhere around there. But the rumors on the 500 series are looking like it's not going to be a massive step up from the 400 series. You were saying just before the stream that it reminded you kind of the 300 series, right, with compared to the 200, where they basically refined the process a little bit.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it kind of reminds me. So far, what we're seeing looks like a 300 series type refresh, which this article has like 3 different headers. It has like the title of the article, AMD is refreshing its Radeon RX 400 series. And if you hover over the tab name, it says it won't be a mirror rebranding in April. But basically, it's a refresh. So this is the 580, just to kind of get everyone up to speed. The rumored RX 580 and the known existing RX 480 have the same CU count, 36 CUs, 2304 streaming processors still. And so from there, it's the same ROPs, it's the same TMUs, same everything. The only difference is the boost speed stock goes up from 1266 to 1340. And that's the only difference I'm really seeing here.
Yeah, so I mean, it's probably not going to be a good upgrade path for someone that's already on a 400 series card, unless you're on like a 460 and you're going to get like a 580 or something this time around.
Right.
But I loved my 480. I think it's a really good card for the price point that it's at. So I mean, 580 is probably going to be just a little bit more refined version of that. And I think it's yeah, but for people that already have 400 series cards, probably not much reason to really run out and pick these up. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of disappointing that we're seeing this already a refresh on. I don't know if you call it. Would you call it a refresh?
The 500 series
Yeah.
that we see, I would, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of consider it a refresh, and it seems so soon for a refresh when Nvidia is not doing that right now. It seems like they're almost just pushing it out just to put something out.
Right.
Where Vega is really the one everyone's waiting for because we need something that's going to compete with 1080 Ti. I mean, I've got a ultra wide FreeSync display over there that's 3840 by 1600, and I can't even use the FreeSync unless I drop my resolution down to like 2560 by 1080 because my 480 can't power it.
Yeah, the really it's an interesting place that AMD's in because, like we were talking about before the show, now they finally have these high-end CPU products, and those are spurring people to go buy new platforms and new CPUs, and so with that, they're going to buy a new GPU probably. But if you buy a $500 or $400 CPU like 1700X, 1800X, then really, unless you're waiting for Vega, you don't have any other similarly priced options other than Nvidia right now, so they've got to get Vega out there.
Yeah, or if you go back to the Fury X, which AMD is not even really pushing anymore. I mean, I just did my Better Red build and I stuck an RX 480 in there because that's just really what they have right now. It would make a lot more sense to stick like a 1080 or a 1080 Ti or something equivalent in there, but AMD doesn't really have anything to offer now that's competing with that. So it's kind of sitting by and waiting. I feel like we've been doing that for a while with AMD.
Yeah, they've had Polaris was I think for the position they were in when it came out, it was a very good move because that is where the bulk of the market buys, is that $200-ish price range. So it's brilliant in that regard, but they do have a bit of catch up to do. And originally Vega was supposed to come out a lot sooner, so I don't think this was the plan originally.
Yeah, do you think maybe Vega is getting pushed back because of HBM2 delays?
That's a possibility. Don't know. I'm not the most qualified person to speculate on the fabrication process and yields and delays, but I would HBM2 would probably be the standout point, like the sore point, in terms of potentially bad yields or high cost, or just building up inventory to make sure you have enough to meet demand at launch or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I think a lot of people are waiting to see if Vega does use HBM2. If they end up using DDR5X as kind of a stopgate until the next series of cards, then I might see that. But I think it's going to be
G5X is fine.
It is. It's very, very fast memory. I mean, and seeing what Micron's done with the 1080 Ti with the memory, boosting up the speeds on there, it's blazing fast.
Yeah,
So
and until you can get full speed out of HBM2 or HBM1, anyway, G5X is pretty competitive in terms of just raw memory throughput and
yeah,
memory bandwidth.
yep, absolutely. Okay, so continuing on, I think this is our last AMD topic here. This is just on the Crimson ReLive drivers, which came out was this today actually, 17.3.3, adding in multi GPU support for Mass Effect Andromeda. Which, if you're running a 48 or two 480s or something like that, it's probably something you need because that game is really tough to run. I don't know if you guys have benchmarked it yet, but man, that was a tough game to benchmark.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that one yet. Been busy with cases and other things, but was just intensive or what?
It's just it's intensive, and also I mean you gotta, it took me about 3 hours before I could get to an area that I felt comfortable benchmarking in, and that 3 hours was like the most boring 3 hours of a video game I've ever
Uh,
played in my life. Like, I wanted to scratch my eyes out. I was so bored.
yeah, that's the biggest like, because I
And I
kind of
love
missed this
Mass
one a bit.
Effect.
Yeah.
I love it, but not this one, sorry.
Yeah, that's the whenever I'm doing any kind of new game benchmark, it's normally like the game launches at 12 a.m. or we get access through a VPN or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, you start playing it immediately when you have access, so you can get a video online or article online ASAP.
Yep.
And the more actual gameplay that I have to fight through to get to a benchmark course, the more frustrated I get.
Oh
It's like,
yes.
I don't want the story. I don't want the gameplay. Just let me test the thing, which of course is not at all how anyone plays
No,
games. But
nobody does.
yeah,
And then it inevitably happens. It's happened to me in the past where people have said it, where I'll get to a point where I feel comfortable benchmarking and like, oh, just wait till you get to this area, the frame rate tanks. I'm just like,
right.
oh, so I'm supposed to play 6 more hours of this then, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can only represent like up to the area you've played through, and for the most part, they're all pretty linear scaling across levels. So
Yeah. Um, to back on the gameplay though, Mass Effect Andromeda. I don't know if did you play much of the first three games?
I played the first one.
Played the first one. All right.
Yeah,
I didn't like the first one. I mean I had heard the story was really good, but I couldn't get into the combat and stuff like that. It came into it like later on, like right around Mass Effect 2 came out, and the combat at that time already was very dated, and it
right.
was the mechanics were just really bad in that game. They don't have any issues with that here. The combat in this I actually think is the most refined that they've had so far in the series, but the characters are just really stale, and the story is just not that interesting, honestly. I mean, with the previous Mass Effect games, I felt very invested with the main character as well as all of my shipmates, whereas in this game, I was just like, I don't really care what happens to these people. Like in Mass Effect 2, I spent several out like dozens and dozens of hours to ensure that every member of my crew survived the final mission. In this game, I don't care if the Tempest blows up day one. It's just like whatever. There's no one interesting in this game at all.
Right.
There's no Rex. There's no Garrus or Solus or anything like that in this game. It actually Solus. That's a good name for it. Actually, this game is pretty soulless in my opinion.
Nicely done.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, the characters in the first one are pretty good. It reminded me
yeah,
of KOTOR a lot. The first game,
yes, yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic. Yeah.
Yeah, the characters from that game were great, and they continued that on through all the games. I mean, even the ending of Mass Effect 3 didn't really disappoint me all that much. At that point, I had put so much hours into that game that I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of hours of enjoyment out of these games that, the last 5 minutes didn't go well. Like, I'm not going to really, kill them over it, but yeah,
Right.
this game is not that great, and from what I've heard since the game came out, is that it's very likely because BioWare kind of offloaded all the work to kind of like a B team studio. It was not their A team that worked on the previous Mass Effect games with this one.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I'm not sure exactly which studio it was or which games they've worked on in the past, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was Dragon Age 2, because that was the worst Dragon Age. That
Yeah.
was my thinking when I started playing this. Was like, I bet the Dragon Age 2 guys worked on this.
Origins was great though. That was a good
Oh,
one.
Origins was amazing. God, that was such a good game. They haven't had a Dragon Age like that since then. That was a great game. I mean, that was like one of the RPGs. Just because of the origin stories alone, it made you want to play it with every single character class available in the game. I think I
Yeah.
completed that game 4 times, and then finish the other origin stories just to do them because they were that great. It was like, oh, you finished the story. Well, now you can get like almost like an 8-hour free DLC for just playing by a different character class with a completely
Right.
different start. It was awesome. Anyway, that was good reminiscing on Mass Effect and Dragon Age. All right. So Vulkan looks like it is going to officially support multi-GPUs in Windows 10, Windows 7, 8.1, and Linux. After there was a news story last week that suggested that was not the case. Looks like Kronos has come forward just to kind of clarify things and like, no, it is going to be supported on conceivably all operating systems, which is good to hear.
Yeah.
With an open source thing like Vulkan, it would be kind of going against the grain for them to not support multi-GPU on every operating system. We already have enough of that with Intel and Microsoft. We don't need Vulkan going down that road too.
Yeah, and Kronos has always been very forward about trying to get Vulkan support on everything because it's as an OpenGL derivative, as what used to be called OpenGL Next, it makes sense that they would support everything on every platform if within reason, I guess. One, it's very competitive against DirectX in that way because now you have something that can scale to Windows 7, which a huge amount of people still use.
Over 50% of computers or something, even though you have to remember that a lot of those are still our businesses.
Right.
Some people forget that, but yeah, a lot of people are still running on Windows 7.
Yeah, and so Vulkan supported there where DX12 obviously isn't. Got support on Linux, theoretically support with mobile OSs as well.
D-Batch was saying in chat that the crossfire on the latest ReLive driver with command line is not working in Mass Effect Andromeda. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. So I guess he's saying that this new driver that's adding multi-GPU support is not actually supporting multi-GPUs. Is that what he's saying? Or no, is he? Yeah, well,
Crossfire not working on new driver and command line to enable not working.
Yeah, it said, okay, on the article, actually, it says, in order to enable Crossfire, AMD users will have to use the command line render device.amd crossfire enable 1. That's an interesting way to go about it. And I've seen I've used command lines like that before in the Frostbite engine, not for enabling Crossfire or SLI. Right. Usually that's something you have to enable at the desktop beforehand. I couldn't imagine loading into a game and only having it running on a single GPU, putting in a command line, and then using 2 GPUs. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't tested that.
Yeah, thank you for pointing it out, D-Bash.
Good information, though.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I didn't catch that in the initial article. I didn't think it would have been an issue, but yeah, that's kind of an odd way to implement multi-GPU support because most users probably aren't going to know to do that.
Yeah.
He says the command is not known. Well, if that's the case, maybe they've added in support on the driver level. It may require a patch from BioWare for this to work. I think that's probably what is the case here. That's just my guess.
Yeah, that would make some sense.
So yeah, it's because I've seen that happen in the past where where either drivers will add in support or vice versa. The game will add in support for multiple GPUs, but the drivers won't have caught up yet. I remember when that happened with Titanfall, where they didn't have support in the game yet for SLI, but NVIDIA was already supporting it. So that could be the case where we just need to see a patch from BioWare on this. So I would keep an eye on it. I'm sure there are people on the forums talking about it. But yeah, hopefully, thank you for mentioning that though to us. This next thing up is on Intel Optane. Since you guys did the article on this, you want to take this one? I'm sure you know way more about it than me.
Sure. Yeah, Intel Optane is basically, I guess, to sum things up very quickly, the Optane platform and ecosystem's kind of been talked about for a while now. The new thing is the DC P4800X, which is a data center drive. So as such, it's $1,500. It's 375 gigabytes. It is effectively an SSD. That price to gigabyte is not great in terms of consumer, obviously, but for enterprise, it's potentially an important thing because Optane, which is built on 3D Crosspoint, which is an architecture developed by Micron and Intel jointly, 3D Crosspoint is supposed to allow devices to sit somewhere between storage and memory. So you end up with something that's got it's got comparable access times and latencies to memory, way better than storage, and more capacity than memory, but it's still slower than memory. It's still faster than storage. So it sits in between. And that makes it kind of a weird technology. I'm not 100% sure how it'll shake out for consumer yet because middleman technologies are always a gamble. But in theory, this would be useful when you're someone like the New York Stock Exchange brokers sitting there and you want to load all your stuff into memory, but there's not enough memory to do that. So you can push it into something higher capacity like Optane drives or 3D Crosspoint drives, basically, and that would help out. But as for consumer uses, there's potential for other implementations, maybe something like caching or maybe something like lower capacity devices that could front load things. We're not 100% sure yet. So consumer side should be coming out at some point in the next year or so. Generally, that's the timeline for that.
Yeah, and I think one of the good things about this is it's going to be rather versatile in the way people are going to be able to implement it. I mean, working on PCI, they're going to have M.2. They even talked about DIMM support
Yes.
in your article. That's pretty cool. And I think Patrick even mentioned the possibility of being able to use it dynamically for RAM as well as storage.
Sort of, yeah. It can be used as memory or as storage in effect. So, like you said, the interfaces are all known interfaces. There's no special Optane interface. So,
Yeah, it'll work on pre-existing hardware is what that means, which is good.
yep. With some limitations for platform support, Z270 mostly is kind of needed, and we'll have more information on that once more embargoes lift. But and then the DIMMs will basically be M.2 devices, so you can effectively have Optane memory that's in an M2 slot. So that's kind of cool. They even have DRAM sized options in the works, or DDR4, I should say, sized options. So it's a very interesting technology to follow. It's extremely early in the lifespan, so this isn't something that I would say go out and buy now.
No.
Even if, yeah,
And
even if
and you need a Xeon CPU right now to support it anyway, right?
well, yeah, technically you could plug in the card into another box, I guess. I haven't tried it or anything.
Yeah, I remember I was reading. Patrick had said so you'll need at least an E5 V2 or E7 V2 or better.
Right.
So it's really meant for server operation at this time. It's kind of cool to look at for the future of what we might actually have available to us, but for most people, our audiences, which are mostly gamers, it's probably not going to serve much interest to you.
Not this part. There might be something later though.
Yeah, in the future.
Yeah, there's a few more. So like some people were asking in our comments, why did you guys go to this event if it was a data center thing? It normally these companies tend to give us a whole bunch of information all at once and just set several embargoes. So it would be reasonable to assume that that sort of thing happened here as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be something for consumers later. I can't really. This isn't me saying like I can't tell you. It's me saying I legitimately am not sure if the consumer-focused technology of Optane will be viable or not. We'll see. We'll have to test it. But it's an interesting idea because it fills a space between memory and storage, because storage is still crazy slow, even NVMe, when compared to memory. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, it's definitely something we'll keep track of. Next up is the 1080 Ti, which has been overclocked to 3 gigahertz. I had saw something like a week ago that was 2.5 gigahertz, and I was like, wow, that's pretty high. And now it's 3 gigahertz, which is like, wow, that's even higher. That's more gigahertz.
That is more gigahertz. Yeah.
Yes, by my math, that's more gigahertz.
I believe it's a full 1 more gigahertz than 2, in fact.
Yes. Let me double check that math.
Let's open up the calculators.
Yep.
Yeah.
It checks out. So this is obviously on LN2 and under liquid nitrogen, I would imagine as well. Just someone dumping a canister of liquid nitrogen onto the GPU.
Yeah.
But this is I had asked this a while ago. I was like, what is the point of all this overclocking? And someone actually explained to me, it like, no, it actually is beneficial for these companies to be able to look at for kind of for the future and stuff like that. So I basically what this is saying is that 3 gigahertz confirmed for Volta. That's what I'm saying. 3 gigahertz confirmed.
Confirmed. You heard it here first.
There you go. I have just made this rumor and confirmed it all in one sentence.
You're not the only one who can do that lately, apparently.
Yeah, I visit those sites too. But yeah, 3 gigahertz, very, very impressive. I think mine, just like all my other Pascal GPUs, kind of tops out at about 2100 on its best day. And the best benchmark that takes advantage of it, 2100 is the ceiling for me, but usually around 2025 to 2050. I mean, that's with the 200 megahertz added to the core. If I go in and added 500 megahertz to the core, it still tops out at 2100. It's like I can't add 500 megahertz. but I messed
Yeah,
around with like 200 to 250, and no matter what I did, it stayed at the same speed.
yeah, there are power and voltage limits, and there's a really hard voltage limit with Pascal. So you can do shunt mods, which we have a video talking about that for the 1080 Ti. But you could theoretically volt mod the thing and get a bit more voltage out of it. You won't get a ton, but it might be enough for another 50 to 100 megahertz offset. That doesn't put you anywhere close to what Kingpin did here when he hit 3 gigahertz. So he's doing a bit more than that, obviously. But Kingpin is a world class, literal professional overclocker. He is paid to do it. He works for EVGA on their Kingpin series cards. So
Yep.
The guy knows what he's doing.
Draco and said that you should turn Buildzoid loose on the 1080 Ti. Do you think he could?
Yeah.
Do you think he could beat 3 gigahertz?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Do you have a 1080 Ti you're willing to sacrifice?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if Buildzoid were local, there are a lot of really cool overclocking projects we could do. But unfortunately, being on another continent, it's very, very difficult to get 1080 Ti's over to him.
Yeah. Right. So what else we got here? We got these last two are just on the 1080 Ti AIB cards, which we're probably expecting to see sometime around mid-April. Is what from the couple of contacts I've spoken to from companies, they're looking at around mid-April probably for these cards. So I don't know if we're going to see anything too unexpected with these. I'm expecting to pretty much to see the same exact designs as on 1080, just with a 1080 Ti inside. Maybe we might see one or two special edition cards we didn't see previously.
Yeah.
The Gigabyte Aorus 1080 Ti looks just like the 1080 one, which is a monster of a GPU. I'm really hoping to test that one. I'm working on a black and orange build. That's why I want to use that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a big card. It's 3 slots.
Yes.
But it's the same cooler as the 1080. So if people already know what that is, then you know what this one is.
Yeah, it's just a monster of a GPU. I don't know if is it bigger than the Zotac Amp Extreme, because I was able to hold that at PAX East and I was just like, my God.
Did you drop it and like form a black hole in the floor because it's so heavy? That Zotac card is huge.
I picked it up and I was like, do you even lift, bro? And I was like, I do now.
Yeah, it's a bit unnecessary, but I guess if you're building like a compensator type product, then it'll be noticeable. I don't know which one's larger. Zotac might win that measuring contest.
Seriously. Or the old Asus like triple stack Direct CU2 cards too.
Yeah.
Those things were huge. I never understood the need for a triple slot card, but I want one now. I guess one thing worth noting here is the price on this. The Gigabyte Aorus card here is £860, comparing that to the 1080 Ti Founders Edition on the same site, which is £740. So £120 markup, which is quite a bit. I don't know how much that'll relate to the U.S. prices, because with the UK things are always kind of very different over there with their pricing. They kind of get bent over for VAT tax, and then on top of that, they also have to pay for rarity of cards. Some cards don't get imported as much, so they end up paying a premium for those as well. So I don't know how much you can relate that to what American pricing will be, if it'll be $100 more than a Founders card.
Yeah, I'd probably ballpark it at $100 more, I think.
Maybe, for a special edition card like this, Extreme Edition, triple slot, I'd say $100 seems to be reasonable.
Yeah, we'll see. The weird thing with the 1080 Ti is the Founders Edition PCB on this one is legitimately good. That wasn't true in the past. So like they've got a good VRM design. It's a decent PCB. So the question is, what do you do when you're a company like Asus or MSI and you sell, like, Asus has this turbo card with the blower fan on it? I don't know that they're going to be able to go below that $700 price. So other than stock shortages on the FE cards, it will be interesting to see how they can validate the existence of their bottom dollar blower cards versus the FE model, just because the FE model is, again, for once, actually using a good PCB.
Mm-hmm.
Cooler's not great, but blower coolers are never great unless you're in a really restricted use case.
Yep. Alrighty, that's we ended up getting through our topics pretty quick today. We're gonna do some Q&A here. First one, I'll take your Drake again. He had asked, will case builders put support rods in cases to take GPU weight off of the PCI slot? Some of them already have. The Cooler Master Case Maker 5T, try saying that 5 times fast.
Yeah,
does have one of those in there actually, and I was trying to use it the other day with the what was it, the Sapphire R9 390, which is a very very long card, and I couldn't even get the GPU in because it hit the bar for the GPU bracket. That's how long the card is. So I ended up unscrewing it, and then it was like I was hitting, it was banging into my dual USB 3 connectors. It was hitting those cables, so I ended up having to unplug those, and then I just ripped the bar out and threw it across the room. And I was just like, "Fuck this bar," and then I was like, "I'm never using this thing again. This is what screws are for."
Yeah, yeah. The BitPhoenix Shogun has one of those GPU supports too. We kind of used it, but you really need one of those massive cards to see any
Justify it.
difference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. With a normal 2 slot card, I haven't really seen much need for them. I've never had GPU sag ever, and I usually don't even use screws actually in my builds because I'm always changing out the GPUs so
right.
much that I don't even bother screwing them in. I did that. I brought my mini build up to PAX, and I did a video on it, and people were like, "Why is it your GPU screwed in?" And it was like, because I just never screw it in. And the
Yeah,
card in that was sagging actually, and that is because it was a mini ITX Stinger motherboard, and the PCI bracket didn't have the locking mechanism that you
right.
usually have on a PCI slot, so it just kind of hung there, literally. Let's see. Chase said, "What do you think about Vega clock speeds will be? Currently, I'm extremely confused on the process that they're building the chip on. Will they be using 14 nanometer LPP rather than LPE?"
I'm not positive on that. I have no idea what the clock speeds are gonna be.
Yeah, we haven't seen all we have so far on Vega is pictures, and they're only like pictures of like half the cards. So we really got to wait and see. No one really knows too much about those
There,
yet.
yeah, there's some specs on. We got some of that early stuff on HBC, the high bandwidth cache, which is basically HBM. But other than the information that was given out around CES time, I don't think there's been much official info out there. I think Tech Report's original article, this would be in January, first week of January if you can find it, was I think that may have had some speculation on the clock speeds, but I'm not 100% sure.
Cam had asked, "Will the 500 series have a 1080 Ti contender?" We actually talked about that earlier in the show. On the 500 series, it looks like no. That's really going to be just kind of like a minor step up from what the 400 series is. For the contenders for 1080 Ti, we would be really waiting on Vega, but we still don't know yet just on that. But not the 500 series of cards, which are going to be coming likely before Vega.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't expect there will almost definitely not be a 1070 or 1080 plus competitor out of the 500 series.
Herlot asked, do we think that Ryzen 5 will be able to unlock cores through the BIOS like the Phenom series?"
I don't know, because they're disabling cores on each CCX. That leads me to believe that it's probably a yield thing where they failed
Yeah.
validation as an R7 chip, so they've been down to an R5 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Um,
what it sounds like they're doing to me.
yeah, and so if someone finds a way to try and unlock it, that seems like it would be a lot of fun. In the past, you've been able to do that with some CPUs and some GPUs where you can unlock cores, and a lot of the time it'll work out kind of okay as long as you're okay with some instability when it's under complete 100% load.
Let's see. Two Nut says, "I desperately need a shave." I disagree. I just shaved this morning. This is called a beard. I shave around it. This kind of just keeps going though, and then I trim it.
Shave around it.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not like Steve. I don't have an amazing beard and mane of hair like him.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not just laziness.
Yep. I was a bit disappointed, Steve, at PAX. I didn't get to touch your hair.
Oh
I was
yeah.
kind of banking on
No,
doing
you
that.
got to pay extra for that. What other questions? Someone said, "Look up." Was it Drake?
Yeah,
Draco and
someone said something about Samsung. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, look up Samsung CHG75. I've looked it up. What am I supposed to do with it?
Is that a new Samsung monitor? I'm guessing.
Gaming monitor lineup for 2017. I see.
Is it affordable?
I don't know. I see a what do you call it? A roadmap.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've looked it up, so I guess we've accomplished that request.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like they're working on HDR G-Sync and stuff like that. Looks like there's like a timeline G-Sync. support and stuff. So cool.
Does that
It's,
say 32 by 9? What is that?
I do see that 32 by 9 QD HDR. It's
Is that
probably
as
an
in?
ultra wide,
Yeah.
4K ultra wide maybe.
That's oh yeah, ultra wide with upcoming 32 by 9. Man, that is an insane
That's gonna be
aspect ratio.
really short height though.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous aspect ratio.
Yeah, I was thinking 21 by 9 wasn't tall enough.
30. So they've got a 3840 by 1600 display coming out,
I have one
and
of those here.
yeah, and a 32 by 9 that will be 49 inches. I'm guessing diagonally.
So what is 3840 by 1600 considered? That's
3840 by 1600 is that's not a 21 by 9, right?
no, I don't think so. I think it's higher than that. It's a very nice resolution though. It's on a 38-inch screen, the pixel density is great. I think it's 100. I think it's like 147 ppi.
Right.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, I saw at that Acer event they had some of those like 200 hertz displays too. Those were pretty interesting.
I had one of those, the Z35. The only issue that I had with it was once I got over like 120, 144 hertz was that the ghosting was pretty bad.
Here's an interesting question. Are either of you interested in VR? We may have talked about this in the past, but do you want to visit that one?
Am I interested in VR? Very, very, very little. Like
Yeah.
I'm basically at the point where I'm waiting for the killer app that sells me on it. Like if they put out one game that I'm just like I need to play that, I'll go out and buy a VR headset. But until then, I'm not going to because there's I don't know. Right now, VR kind of seems like the Wii. It was like it just doesn't have a whole lot of games. It doesn't have a
Right.
whole lot of games. It's just nothing's really come out for it that really is like I need that. Like Valkyrie looked kind of cool. I played the demo for it and it was really impressive. But from everything I've heard, the game itself is not really that great.
Right.
But it's a
Yeah,
cool demo. Don't get me wrong. It's I think for flight sim stuff like that or flight combat in any way, VR is amazing. Like yeah, if I was doing flight sims, then I would definitely want VR.
benchmarking VR is difficult at best.
Yeah.
Zarkon said, yeah. So we that FCAT VR thing that was announced at the 1080 Ti, we were working on that for about 5 months behind the scenes, and it was a whole lot harder in November than it is today. It used to be we'd have so for every set of data, I would have to go in there and edit Perl files, do some regular expressions editing to align the data from one pass to the next or from hardware and software capture. Huge amount of work just to generate a chart. Benchmarking itself is really hard because you have to physically move around, and that's not necessarily difficult. But when you're doing things like testing low-end cards and they're stuttering, it's really not a pleasant experience. So there's this weird like physical aspect to benchmarking that's not normally present, and it means that like I can sit down and run benches 6 or 8 hours in a row normally, but with VR my limit's like 90 minutes, and I can't do anymore.
Yeah, I haven't done the longest I've used a VR headset was like 5 minutes. So I could only imagine though.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
someone
yeah.
suggested Half-Life 3 VR. I don't think we'll see that, but I do think Valve is going to leverage VR in one of their titles. I think if they did like a Portal game, I'd be all over that.
Yeah,
Portal, Half-Life, anything like that. If they did that, yes, I would go out and buy a Vive for that for sure.
yeah.
Faux show. Hard OCP did a great VR benchmark piece. I'll have to check it out. Let's see. Anything else? What do you think about the six? Yeah, I'll bring this up. Someone asked, "What do we think about the 16-core Ryzen rumor?"
For consumer.
Yeah, there was a rumor for it. I'm not sure if it was necessarily for consumers or for servers, but there was a rumor mentioning 16 cores, 32 threads.
Right.
For like I think it was like $1,000. I mean, if they do it for $1,000, then why the hell not?
Yeah, I haven't really. I saw the headlines pop up. I try not to follow rumors too much. Wow, that is. Thank you, Forbes, for that autoplay ad with audio.
Oh, yes, Forbes likes to do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't read a whole lot about it, to be honest. So I guess Ryzen would indicate that it would be a consumer or a non-server part, because Naples is kind of the server area.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I have no thoughts. I'd have to read more about it.
Yep, I'm kind of in the same boat. I saw the headlines and I saw that it was rumor, and I just kind of moved along because I didn't see a whole. I had looked like one article and was like, "There's really not a whole lot behind this."
Yeah, I try not to read the rumors unless they're really close to launch and I might already have info on the thing, because it gets too hard to mentally compartmentalize like what's a rumor versus what do we know officially that we can't talk about,
Oh
or
yes,
can't talk about or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, that was really hard with Ryzen. I mean, at a certain point, once the NDAs were finalized, I just basically had to stop talking about Ryzen. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just not going to talk about Ryzen anymore. What's Ryzen? I don't know what that is. Theoretically, it's a processor that may or may not be coming out in the near future.
Right.
Uh, let's see. Do you think it's worth selling two 980 Ti Extreme editions running at 1500, 8000 megahertz to get one 1080 Ti? Yes.
Two what? 980s or 980
I
Ti's?
believe he meant to say 980 Ti.
If it's two 980s for a 1080 Ti, then that
Well, the
seems good.
the O is right next to the I on the keyboard, so I'm thinking it's Ti.
Oh, I see. Two. Okay, gotcha. I see what you're seeing now.
Yes. Yeah. Ti's. I mean, only because of the poor SLI scaling that I've seen recently. I saw someone had posted a video on The Witcher 3 980 Ti's in SLI versus 1080 Ti's in SLI. Gained 4 frames. 4 frames. It's like lol. LOL
Yeah,
CD Project Red.
I don't use multi GPU in any of my personal systems or work systems just because the scaling is not reliable.
Yeah, I've moved on from it back when the 1080 came out, and now that I got my Ti, I feel pretty much sussed with that. Like, yeah, I just don't need anything else at the moment. But I also said that when I got my 1080. When I got my 1080, I was like, all I was playing was Overwatch, and I had a 4K monitor that I was reviewing at the time. I was like, yeah, this is perfect. I don't need anything beyond this. and then more Ubisoft games came out, and I was just like, okay, maybe I do need a 1080 Ti.
Do you have favorite YouTube channels besides your own, of course? That seems like a good ending question. Do we
Sure.
want to answer that one?
Let's see. Let's load up my YouTube subscription page here and see favorite channels. As far as tech channels, I used to watch like everything tech that would go up. But now there are very few channels where I will watch most of what they upload. I really like Jay's 2 cents. I like his his vlogs and stuff that he does. I don't really watch too much hardware reviews from other tech channels anymore. But
Yeah, that's valid.
I like watching Jay's vlogs. Like I've been watching his stuff with his new studio space. I like watching that. I watch Boogie2988, Russian Badger. I watch all of his Rainbow Six Siege stuff. I mostly play Rainbow Six Siege right now, and his videos are freaking hilarious. Like there's never a time where I watch a Russian Badger video about a game where I do not laugh my ass off multiple times. Yeah, those are some of my top ones right now. Total Biscuit also.
Oh
He
yeah,
doesn't do as much content anymore. Unfortunately, he just did something today on Mass Effect Andromeda that I was listening to a little bit in the car, and then I got home. But yeah, definitely Total Biscuit. When he does his WTF is videos, I'll watch those almost immediately.
Yeah, Total Biscuit's great. I was fortunate enough to get to see him do a talk, I guess, locally at an event once.
Mm-hmm.
He's really interesting to listen to. He knows his stuff. Like his big thing he was pushing then was for an upstart channel. So this is like, a bit newer than our channels. An upstart channel, he was recommending go hardcore on the audio before the video, because his theory was that people were willing to listen to
Absolutely.
Yeah, listen to good audio and just ignore the video than the other way around.
100% agree. I've said that.
Yeah.
I've said that many times to people.
Yeah, I guess my channels, I like Video Game Donkey is hilarious for game content. Killian Experience is pretty good. He's similar to Video Game Donkey. And on the hardware side, same as you, I like the vlogs. Jay's vlogs have been pretty good. Those are fun because you get to see the more like the side of the person that is passionate about the business aspect of the business. So it's kind of relatable.
Yeah, I like to see that stuff, and also the hardware stuff too, and their gear, like the video gear and stuff, when they go over that stuff too. And
Yeah.
you could bundle Paul into that as well when he does his garage vlogs and his setup vlogs with like his workspace and stuff. I'm always into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul and Kyle are good for that. And yeah, I guess those are the main ones I watch.
Yep. Speaking of Kyle, looks like he just did an extreme room cleaning vlog. I know no one's searching that, but I will watch that. And I don't know why. I don't know why. But
Extreme room.
when this stream is over, at some point tonight, I'm going to watch Bitwit Kyle clean his room. There it is. That's my Wednesday. That's my Wednesday evening.
It is actually a thing. 8
Yep.
minutes long.
Yep. 8 minutes.
And the thumbnail.
Yep.
Clean your room.
I will watch it.
I think I'll do the same.
Yep. There you go. Already watched Russian Badger's video though. Go watch Russian Badger. He's hilarious, especially if you play Rainbow Six Siege.
I'll give that one a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, he's good. You play Siege?
No, though I was looking into Ghost Recon Wildlands though. I haven't played it yet.
It's all right if you got a bunch of friends to play with, but it doesn't really have a narrative. And it's kind of like the open world game. It's almost like it's like a Far Cry or Assassin's Creed game where you just get the map of objectives to clear. It's like just side mission simulator. There you go. That's what I called it earlier to my friend. He was like, "Yeah, that's pretty accurate."
Yeah.
Yep. But it's fun and the game looks gorgeous. Like the vegetation and stuff in that looks incredible. But I mean, if you want to play it like 1440p, you need a 1080 Ti.
Yeah. Yeah, I did benchmark it. I noticed that.
Yeah, it's brutal. All right, guys. I think we're going to go ahead and wind down and get on out of here. Thank you for joining me today, Steve. Hopefully we'll get to do it not too long in the near future. I will definitely be back next week for TGW. I was, gone for... I missed 2 weeks. That's the first time that's ever happened. I had only missed like one show before that, and then 2 weeks in a row. 1 week was for PAX. Last week I just got busy and I didn't have topics or anything lined up, and I was just like, I'm just gonna, rather than doing a half-ass show, I'd rather wait until next week because I knew I was gonna have Steve today. And
yeah, thanks for having me. It's a fun show as always.
Yeah, no problem, man. All right, be sure to check out Steve and all his work over at Gamers Nexus on their YouTube channel, which I'll link down below, and their website and everything. And we'll catch you guys next time. Ta-ra.